I want to attempt an answer to the universal question that's asked. The call to be a teacher is universal. Only few answer. There's like a consecutive layer in my charts, whether it be human design, gene keys, even the fact that I'm like double Aquarius. There's this sight and vision that I've always felt called to put some words to, and I really enjoy teaching things that I learn externally, like hair, and things that I learn internally, esoterically. There's, even when I started teaching yoga, I was thinking about how I would teach it before I even started teaching it. Like I was more so the teacher in my mind and following, like, okay, plant your right hand, like inhale, lift, stack your shoulders, reach up, open your chest. Like I was already sort of saying that in my mind. So this, like, taking a stab at teaching feels like I must preference with, yes, I think that I'm intelligent. Yes, I think that I have something to say. Yes, I think that this information is valuable. And these sort of like cocky, non-humble things in my mind that I was thinking about, like, who am I to do this, and et cetera, et cetera. And who am I not to do this? I have a variety of experience where, like, I've applied these lessons and embodied them. And I've got plenty of life experience where I fall off track and nearly forget everything that I've learned and have to be reminded that the work, as it's described, is an effort that you're choosing. And yeah, I think I have this other audacity coming up inside of me with I'm pregnant. And because I've already loved being a teacher, it doesn't scare me to think about teaching my child and doing it in where I'm responsible for it. And so who do I think I am? I think I'm capable of teaching. I think I'm capable of teaching information and in practical ways to apply it. I don't have like a lot of experience in teaching this in this way, so this is the beginning start of it. It kept coming up to me where it was, I will reference this a million times that my teachers are where I learned this information from, where the inspiration to learn more beyond taking courses and classes. Mami Omani is, her and her husband, now they're calling it an occult school. She's been, she's an esoteric teacher. She's a teacher of the fourth way. I found her through A Course in Miracles, which is something I was studying many years ago. And then when I found a fourth way, that way really spoke my language. And she says in a way that, like, we all do need a teacher that speaks our language. And that was huge for me. And it's funny enough that she came into my realm of, maybe I was looking at hashtag A Course in Miracles, and she was like, I think she might have been pregnant, perhaps not though. And she was like twerking, and she's a white girl, and she just actually like punk, like just not what I expected her to be. And I just like loved that she had this very spiritual, conceptual practice, and yet she was still, relatable to me, because like I still am, I don't feel like I'm like, oh, love and light and like just gentle. Like I have a past, and I love to dance, and I feel like dancing is a spiritual practice, and that's probably where, yoga really originated. Movement is good for us. So she was mentioning in just a short brief moment the other day when I was listening to a live of hers that we need someone to speak our language. And so there's this life experience I'm having right now where the best way I could describe it was, I just don't feel like anyone speaks my language. Like I'd have to translate constantly and there's just nobody that I'm around currently. Like, it's just, I came home, so I'm around like my family and just like the general energy that I feel like I kind of like I grew from, where I came from. But like they still don't really get me. I'm like a weirdo to them, and I just feel like when I was traveling and where I've been in the past years is like just surrounded by people that are fascinated and like want to help dissect the ways that you think, the ways that I think, and just like the curiosity of the mystery of life and how it applies to us. And you know, how even just when I think about my curiosity sometimes strikes a chord with other people, as if I'm maybe judging, or like I think they're wrong, or they need to prove themselves, or I don't know, but it doesn't always like come off well. They get a little bit more like, they don't want to say the wrong thing someone has said, and it's like I'll do my best to work through like what energy I'm bringing to the table to make them not feel like they can be wrong. But that's a lot of times it's like somebody else's thing, even mine, like to not want to be so nervous to teach on something that has like transformed my life and continues to help me sort of stay grounded, help me remember the sort of principles of my not my inner world even, just okay, so a fourth way is not the way, it is just a way. I love that. I love that there's so many ways, and a fourth way would describe the other ways as something that it's the way of the yogi through your mind, the way of the Rafiki, which is like through your body. So it'd be like, you know, maybe like gym folks like find enlightenment through physical body activities, and I do too, like muscling up a mountain. And then the way of the monk, which would be more religious, and so like you could find your path and like whatever resonates with you. And then the fourth way would be the sort of combination of all of them without having to go to any extreme. Sort of not take even from them, but acknowledging that like if you can go through the path of this and go through the path of that, but the path is, and the fourth way is like, what is your sort of like, if you can get your head around it without feeling like butthurt about it, but like, what is your machine? How does your machine work? Like, how does our consciousness work? What is our programming? Like, what ways do we show up with our behaviors? How do we identify with things? Like, what's our biases and what's our contradictions? And just even in general, like, how does our machine work when, like, it works better when we drink water? And even to just study and notice how it works. So teaching a fourth way and practicing is like, it's just beginning to really like bubble up to why it's important to me, and how maybe in many years I wanted to teach these things, but I was still learning them myself. Now it feels very right for me and very like a saving grace for me to get it out, to maybe talk to somebody else like me, that someone's just not speaking their language. I think I had for a long time thought maybe everybody had a really great support system around them, like of friends, and I worked really like good to make those friendships last. And at this point in my life, I just don't have a lot of people around me. And it reminds me that there's a lot of people who are curious about these type of things that like I was curious about, and it really expanded my world and expanded my thinking. And I'd really like to teach it, and I'd like to teach it because it's connected to the fact that like I want to teach my own little human how to understand their machinery, and I know in little ways we were sort of suppressed or denied or programmed to be a certain way, and there's this, I didn't know any different, and I'm sure neither did the people who taught me. And so if I could be the example of like, this is a process to learn about yourself, to free yourself from yourself. Like, there's many ways that we sort of like enslave ourselves, if you can get around that world, that word that says, you know, this is the sort of loop that we live in. This is the fixation of the fixedness of our life. There's so much more to that. There's like a limitlessness to it. And so one of my favorite things about Fourth Way is not where I was intending on starting today, but one concept that if we're a machine, that we have this like endless and limitless possibility of a machine. So the book was, the teachings are ancient. The information was like arising in like 1918. So it's funny that I'm also reading a birthing book that was like that old too. So it's interesting that time period's for me. So the example is like an airplane is found in the middle of like the obvious, okay, so this is probably like once upon an airplane, but a village, never seen an airplane, airplanes found, they think, okay, wow, what is this carriage, let's just say. So they start dragging it and hauling things in this airplane because it has wheels. And then somebody finds out that, oh, it has an engine, so you turn it on so you could drive it. It doesn't need a mule to pull it. Somebody else comes along and they're more curious and wondering about this apparatus, and they realize that it could fly. And so I think a modern day example of this is we have a cell phone, and a lot of us, myself included, you know, we really can use the phone to like call someone, text somebody, maybe take some pictures, and then we have like this like internet, like we're just like unlimited access to information and like a lot of things at our fingertips. And so if you don't know how to use your phone, the limitless is not available to you. So like, have you ever learned something on your phone and been like, whoa, that was like to hold the space button and then find where I want to edit the paragraph was a big game changer for me. So like when you learn these things about yourself, like, okay, so if you wanted to look at yourself as a machine, right? So we are, not if you don't even want to look at yourself as a machine, we have software, hardware, we're kind of machinery does what it's programmed to do. We do what we're told to do. You know, there's like machinery is not conscious of itself. We're usually not conscious of ourselves. We're just kind of sleeping through life. This is said a million times in a million ways. We're just sleeping through life, like external things are happening to us, we're just responding. So there's nothing really on purpose. And so sort of the difference between a machine and a human would be like doing something on purpose and like having the ability to grow and overcome your limitations. And so when you find these sort of things out about yourself, and you're a machine, and you can just be more curious, right? So a machine can be literally a cell phone, it could be a fax machine, and it could be an airplane, right? So these are all machines. What does your machine do? I just think that that's a really curious way to look at yourself. And the basis of a Fourth Way, and not the basis, but more of like the way that it's introduced is similar to A Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles, if you're not familiar, because I'm not gonna teach that much on it. It was something that introduced me to a way of seeing. A Course in Miracles defines a miracle as like a change of perspective and seeing something different. So it did its job. It starts with basically, we give meaning to all that we see. So an example in the course is like if you walked into a room, literally anywhere in the world, period, point blank, and it just had a wood surface with legs holding it up, you could easily say, oh, that's a table. But then somebody else would say that's a chair, because there's kids sitting on it, right? So we do label and identify everything that we see immediately. And so A Course in Miracles will say that's kind of like your work is to observe the way that you see everything and like how you basically like make it mean something. Fourth Way is similar in the sense that like it encourages you to know thyself, but first you have to find out how to know. So learn how to see, learn how to observe correctly. And that I can see is a sort of just a shift enough from the everyday teaching. Not the everyday teaching, because like I'm not even trying to say that there's something new here, but it felt like for me when I was really in the not the throes, but like when a lot of things were emerging just before COVID, and a lot of things were emerging with like Gene Keys, human design, astrology's always been around, but like different yogi, the Bhagavad Gita, like just Christianity, just all of the things that were arising, those were arising, but like they were around for me to sort of like explore as a path of my own curiosity in like my inner world, and like figure out kind of who I am. And this one just really like grabbed me, you know. It speaks in a way, he says he can be in the introduction of ways, which is a very cool study for me too, is whenever I find a teacher, and I encourage the same for anybody else, whenever you find a teacher, like find out what they're teaching from, and then just get your own like tangible book of it and study it yourself. Even if it doesn't like come to you, that's not really the point. It's the point that is the effort. And like as you kind of collect information, then they're teaching it, you can relate to the fact that you've also sort of tried to make it your own. And Fourth Way only says really teaching something from your own words, not from your own words. Use the words that you were taught by, but make it your own, something that you can explore, something that you have explored enough to explain from your own point of view. So I love that. And anyways, in some way you can explain that the system teachings could be esoteric Christianity, esoteric Buddhism, all of it just coming down to the reality and unity with everything in the universe. The experiencing the presence of I am. And I am is a little bit more clouded when you're a mechanical being. I am is a lot more clouded when you're identified. It's like identified with, with no like attachment to it, but like with politics, with religion, with even just a sort of teaching, even just being too identified with that you're only this one thing, or that you're only this one thing actually. So like just noticing how that is, I think is for me, it was really cool. And the teachings that he kind of describes is how to see. So this is like learning how to see yourself objectively, even not just if you can see yourself as like affected by your past, the objective truth there is that your past is dictating your current situation. That's just like objective, right? So you could see yourself subjectively, like I'm a product of and hurt from my past. Okay, so then you could just look at objectively, like the way that you're responding to life right now is because you can't get over your past. So like where does your work become? Your work becomes clear because you can kind of observe that. And the teachings say like you do work on anything, you do work on everything. And that's pretty cool to me. That's pretty cool to me. And so I love that it starts off right away with like how can you see yourself? And then when you do see yourself, whether you're identifying or you're in a negative attitude, or one of my favorite things about the course the teachings is that the quicker that you can kind of filter things, not to like oversimplify, but it gives an idea of what good and bad is. And good being something that you choose purposefully, that you are conscious of, that that didn't just like sort of happen. let's just say, even like something that you purposely did. You aimed for this thing and then you did it. That would be good in the way, right? And then no bad, but bad or an error would be something that was mechanical, something that you did without thinking about it, something that had a consequence that you just gave to the wind, and you're not really taking any responsibility for your actions or your life. So when you are intending to go south out of a parking lot because that's where your direction is, but you go north just because you're sort of, let's just say, absent-minded, like that would be bad, even though like that's so good to know that like bad's not really real. You made a mistake, you are off course, you were sleeping, right? And so you could make it a big deal about like, this and this and that are bad, but like at the objective root of bad behavior is that they're asleep, they're identifying their I am identifying, I'm in negative feelings, I'm in, there's so many different ways to look at it. But the point is that like, there's not a harmony inside of me. There's not a consciousness that is like watching what I do presently and engaging in the situation outside of me. That would be bad, where I've lost myself, I fell asleep, I'm on autopilot. So it's one way for somebody to look at it in that way, and it's another way to look at it as I have experienced the times in my life where coasting didn't get me the results financially, the results emotionally, the results in my healthy body, the results in my relationships. And if you just do a slight bit of, if I were to say that there was a value in any work, it'd be to notice these things and see how they've affected your relationships and how they can create said more money, more physical health, more closeness in your relationships, and more just creative output. Even for me, like this is this creative output, and it'll be interesting to see how that comes up just for my own lessons, because this is for me and a version of me that needed this to hear it spoken my language. And so the value, if I were to sell a system or a teaching, would be in what ways do you see it affecting your life? And now it's not, and I'll just preference by saying that I don't think that anybody's perfect, myself included. And I shouldn't even say, I'm not perfect. Like, I have a grasp on these teachings, and there's like, it gives me solace to turn back and like not spin and spiral out of control. It helps guide me in times where I feel pretty confused. And when I'm really in the throes of it, it gives me sort of a way to look at myself. Like, not a checklist necessarily, but like, okay, like what exactly is the objective truth in my situation is a little bit easier to see. Whether it be like, you got yourself here, Ash, like you made choices, you sort of fell asleep, you asked for it, whatever, like I took a risk and I ended up here. Like, this is objective truth, like this is how it happened. And it does often kind of bring me back to like, okay, that's what I was really looking for. Like, if I can bring myself back to like back online in a way, like if I can bring myself back online to be like, okay, we're participating in this game again. That feels like I can have some kind of, like there's some kind of wholeness in me. There's a wholeness to that. So very curious. The whole point of the system, and anybody who probably would find me whatsoever, would be curiosity. I do definitely experience this life for the most part when I'm doing my best, when I'm not asleep. And I would say, like, an interesting thing, I feel like sleep is also something I notice. A lot of my life has been pretty self-authority. My time is my own. Lots of adventure, lots of excitement and play and new experiences, and not so much in survival mode. Survival mode, maybe like emotionally and like trying to figure myself out, yes, too. But like usually I can always take care of myself. And so currently there's a sort of a survival of like growing something new and growing a baby and just moved here. There's this like sort of, I'm more in survival than typical. And I have a new compassion for people who are stuck in the throes of labor just to keep up and feeling kind of like a workhorse. Where does the energy come to fill up your cup, or like even just to like dream? Like I could kind of see that for myself, and like a lot, like I guess because thank God I have an experience inside of me where I've witnessed something else. I know that I can get back there. I know that there's like I've sort of fell asleep. I'm in life right now, and the energy that I'm giving to something that doesn't really mean enough to me is the energy that I now need to see more clearly and figure out how to manage it so that I have energy for something else that's important to me, like this. Teaching is important to me. I feel an energized inside of me anyways. So it's like if I'm going to output energy somewhere, I'm noticing that a lot of times other people can get caught up in like, you're stuck with putting energy into this thing in order just to make money, in order to, just get by, in order to blah, blah, blah. So I have more compassion for that right now. And the experience is also driving me with a bit of, I am like, fourth way also does invite you to look at when you're observing yourself, to observe yourself and let it basically hurt your feelings. Like there's value to it stinging and suffering it, because if you don't, you're not really going to make a change. So the other day I was pretty angry at my circumstance, like coming home, really just like I just like met myself with tears, and I was just frustrated as to like, okay, so this is a situation that I'm in right now, and what ways am I not taking responsibility to change it? And the amount of time that I'm putting in somewhere else that I'm not stoked on in order to just survive is like, if you're gonna be fucking suffering or fucking feeling silly somewhere, I might as well choose it, okay? So like, if I'm going to fail or succeed at something and put some time and effort into it, like it might as well be like what I choose. And here it is. So I'm just gonna attempt to teach more just like from the 6 years I have experience of learning this, and just put it out there and see what happens. Just even for my own sake, one step at a time. This was step one, sort of not necessarily an introduction to fourth way, but let's see if the next one will be a little bit more focused. But I guess I would have a hard time learning from a teacher if I didn't know a little bit. Maybe a couple other important things that I think are fascinating are, I am a hairstylist, so 17 years of research and development is what I call it, on people telling me their inner worlds, and then sort of knowing various teachings and just like witnessing sort of what I would definitely call humanity in the chair, like honest. It's really cool. I think that gives, I think that I got into that industry because I already am like curious and interested. Human experience is really curious to me. That I think is probably just important to know. That like some of my verification and experimenting if you will be through other people while things were shared, and just like witnessing each other in front of one another. So school. So welcome to school.